Right, so today we're going deep on Daryl Hall and John Oates.
Oh, yeah.
You know them.
Big time.
The music.
That's huge.
But we're going way past just the hits.
Way past.
Like, I mean, everyone knows Maneater,
right.
Private Eyes.
Yeah.
You Make My Dreams.
Of course.
But this is a deep dive.
Deeper.
And our source material for this one
Right.
is this fantastic article called Maneater. A deep dive into the soulful pop of Daryl Hall and John Oates.
I like it.
So you ready to get soulful?
Let's do it.
All right. So
Yeah.
when you think about Daryl Hall and John Oates, what comes to mind?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, like you were saying, we all know those hits like Maneater and Private Eyes.
Right.
But for me,
Yeah.
they're more than just like a singles band.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got this whole like
Depth.
Yeah, depth.
It's like a blend of,
so many things.
yeah, so many influences.
I mean, you hear soul in there.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
hear like 70s rock,
Yep.
pop, obviously, some funk even.
It's really interesting. And they met in Philadelphia,
Philly,
which,
the birthplace of soul.
like, you think of that sound?
Oh, yeah.
Philadelphia International Records.
Gamble and Huff,
Oh, yeah.
the sound of Philadelphia.
But this is where the article gets kind of interesting.
Oh, okay.
They actually started out playing folk music.
Like,
I know.
wow.
It's kind of a head scratcher.
Yeah, that's a long way from like, you know,
Yeah.
I can't go for that to like, you know, blowing in the wind.
Like, I can't even picture them with, like, acoustic guitars,
right.
you know, sitting on stools.
Wild.
But they were doing that,
Wow.
like, in the late 60s in Philly.
Uh,
And then they went to England
okay.
in the early 70s, and they were exposed to Philly soul.
In England.
In England, but, like, in a way
Right.
that they hadn't heard it before.
Okay.
Like, I think it was being presented differently,
Interesting.
like on the radio or whatever.
Right.
And they had this, like, aha moment
Like, wow.
where they were like,
This is it.
this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
And so they took that sound back to Philly
Okay.
and they started blending it with their folk roots.
Wow. So they didn't like totally abandon the folk thing?
No, they kind of
Interesting.
kept it in there.
Okay.
And that was really, I think, what made their sound unique.
So that was like the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Folk and the soul together.
And, you know, their breakthrough album was in 1976.
Yeah.
Bigger Than Both of Us,
I know that one.
featuring the hit,
Yeah. Let me guess.
She's Gone.
She's Gone classic.
Oh, it's so good.
Such a good song.
It's so soulful, but it's got that, like, folky earnestness to it.
I see what you mean about
Yeah.
that folk influence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just like a straight up soul song.
Right.
It's got something else in there.
And that song's been covered like a zillion times.
Oh, yeah.
By everybody.
I think even like a punk band has covered She's Gone.
I believe it.
It's like, it's one of those songs that transcends genre.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just a great song.
It's a universal theme too, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody's had their heartbreak
Oh, absolutely.
at some point.
So you can always relate to that.
That's probably why it's such a good karaoke song too.
Oh, yeah.
You can really belt it out.
I bet you've done that a few times.
Maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have that success with She's Gone. But then
Yeah.
the 80s hit
The 80s.
in MTV.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
And they kind of
Evolved.
evolved their sound.
Okay.
Like they really embraced like the synths.
Yeah.
And the drum
The
machines.
80s sound very distinctive.
And they had so many hits in the 80s.
Oh, man. So
Like,
what?
I think every album
Yeah.
had multiple hits on it.
It's true.
Like Voices,
Oh, yeah.
Private Eyes,
Classic.
H2O,
Another one.
Big Bamboo.
They were just cranking them out.
I mean, they were like a hit machine.
And those videos too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like so iconic.
I remember watching them on MTV,
Oh yeah, I too.
like all the time.
All day long.
And their sound just fit that era so perfectly.
It did.
Like it was just made for,
Like synthesized soul pop.
right.
Right.
It was just perfect for that time.
Yeah.
And were there any particular instruments
Oh yeah.
they used?
They were really into synthesizers.
Oh, no.
Specifically the Oberheim OBXA.
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 It had this really like rich analog sound, kind of warm.
Yeah.
A lot of the big 80s hits used it.
Really?
Yeah, like Van Halen Jump,
Oh wow.
Prince 1999. A lot of those classic tracks.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Interesting.
And for drums,
Yeah.
they used the Lindrum a lot.
The Lindrum.
The Lindrum, yeah, one of the first programmable drum machines.
Okay.
You could get really like tight, punchy rhythms with it.
So that's what's giving those songs that like
That 80s driving beat.
that 80s driving beat. Exactly.
But you know, it's interesting because
right.
they were using all this like
Yeah.
new technology.
Right.
But they didn't lose sight of like the song.
Right.
Like, they were still writing really great songs.
Yeah, they weren't just like, synth programmers.
No.
They're songwriters first and foremost.
Yeah, and they weren't afraid to tackle, like,
Deeper subjects.
yeah, like deeper issues.
Like in one-on-one.
Yeah, one-on-one. What's that about?
It's kind of about social isolation.
Oh, wow.
Like that feeling of being disconnected.
Yeah.
Even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
And that was in 1982.
Wow.
Way before social media and all that.
So they were kind of ahead of their time
I think so.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then you have a song like Sarah Smile,
Ah.
which is just like a classic
Beautiful song.
love song.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's got like a real like depth of emotion to it.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Hall & Oates. They could write those like super catchy pop songs.
Yeah.
But they also had this like, soulful side.
Yeah.
And they could really tap into those like raw emotions.
And they weren't afraid to experiment either.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
Like in the late 70s, they put out this album
Okay.
called Along the Red Ledge.
I'm on the Red Ledge. I don't know that one.
It's kind of like a cult classic.
Okay.
It wasn't a huge commercial success,
Okay.
but it's got like these new wave influences,
Oh,
electronic elements.
interesting.
Like they were kind of pushing the boundaries of their sound.
So they weren't afraid to take risks.
No, they were always trying new things.
That's cool.
And then, they had that legendary concert at the Apollo Theater in 1985.
The Apollo.
Yeah,
Wow, that's like hallowed ground.
I know.
For soul music?
Yeah.
For a pop duo to play the Apollo?
Yeah,
That's a big deal.
and they killed it.
They must have.
Oh, yeah. The energy was amazing.
I bet.
Like the crowd was going wild.
Yeah.
And it just showed like
Yeah.
how talented they were
Yeah.
and how their music could connect. With,
Like a diverse audience?
Yeah, like a really diverse audience.
That's the sign of a true,
Yeah.
musical force.
And I think that's really what makes them so special.
Yeah.
They weren't just like a product of their time.
No, they transcended it.
Yeah, they took all these different influences
Right.
and they created something that was,
Timeless.
yeah.
Way.
And their music is still so relevant today.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Like you hear it sampled in hip hop.
Oh, yeah. All the
You
time.
hear it covered by indie bands.
Yeah.
It's like it just keeps coming back.
It's true.
And I think that's really the big question.
What's that?
What is it about their music
Yeah.
that makes it so enduring?
Right.
Like, why does it still resonate with people?
It's a good question.
Is it the melodies?
Yeah.
Is it the lyrics?
Maybe.
Is it that blend of genres?
Could be.
Like, what is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like the Hall & Oates magic.
Yeah,
It's hard to put your finger on it.
but it's definitely there.
It's definitely there.
So I think that's something for our listeners to think about.
Yeah.
As they go back and listen to
Yeah.
the music of Daryl Hall and John Oates.
With fresh ears.
With fresh ears.
See what you hear.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll discover something new.
I think you will.
I think so too.
All right, well, that's our deep dive
That was fun.
on Daryl Hall and John Oates.
They're great.
Until next time.
Keep on listening.